Hello, this is psychicpodcasts.com. I'm Psychic Sahar.
Hello, Natasha, and thank you for joining us today.
Hello, Sahar. Thank you for contacting me.
I'm very grateful to receive your book, and it's a marvelous book, I have to say. And this is your latest book, which is called I Think I'm Psychic, and You Can Be Too.
Yeah, or you could say, I think I'm psychic, and you can be too. That's the feeling.
Absolutely. It's a marvelous book. You're a very good storyteller, and it's wonderful to have an insight as to what is it like to be a psychic. And I love the quote that you begin the book with, and you say, if you want to become psychic, you can. If you think you're psychic, you probably are. If you're uncomfortable with being psychic, you're not alone. When you choose to see your psychic ability as a blessing, it becomes one. I think that's a marvelous quote.
Thank you, because I teach psychic development workshops here in Canada, and my experience with my students is they are so relieved to get in a room with other people who don't think they're crazy. And I say to them, you're not crazy.
Yes, absolutely.
Actually, you're more highly evolved.
Yes. Now, you are a professional psychic, and you have quite a following, really, through your columns, your book, and your classes. I know what a professional psychic is. You know what a professional psychic is. Can you tell our listeners, briefly, what is a psychic?
Well, I think that we actually all have the ability to be psychic. But what I think a psychic can be is a spiritual healer. I would describe myself that way. And what I do is, because of my heightened awareness and sensitivity, I'm able to go into the mind and the different levels of consciousness of my clients and be able to sense their vibration of energy and then translate that vibration into visual images and feelings and smells and sounds, and be able to feed back to them actually what's going on the deeper levels of themselves.
That's wonderful, because you actually also make the distinction in your book. You say that you don't like the label fortune teller because it isn't necessarily synonymous with being psychic. And I think that's really wonderful.
Thank you.
That you make the distinction, because not a lot of people are aware as to what a fortune teller is and how different that is from being psychic.
Well, I also want to empower my clients to let them know that they're the ones that are creating their own future.
Yeah.
And I say, basically, I'm like the weatherman. Based on the current conditions of the client's energy and the way they're thinking, that's what they're going to create in the immediate future.
Mm-hmm.
But like the weatherman, I can be wrong, and the client can change their mind.
Absolutely.
So nothing is written in stone. And I really coach people towards creating their highest potential.
That's very important, I think, to be able to realize what it is, and then the next step is how to get there.
Exactly. So I give them tools.
Yes, that's important, practical guidance and tools. Natasha, you also have a marvelous story. I must say, you really are a very good storyteller in your book. When you relate how discovering your psychic abilities happened, and at one point you say, do I need to be psychic or could I just know someone's innermost mind? And you wondered, especially how could psychics see? And then you finished the chapter by saying, fate must have heard my question, because it wasn't long before I had my first experience with a real psychic. Is that something you can tell us about? How did your experiences start? Is there an experience that stands out in your mind, how you discovered you were psychic, or perhaps what was your experience when you first went to a psychic?
Well, I think it's fascination. And I think if we're fascinated by something, it means that it's inside of us. And we are drawn to it, magnetized to it. So
that's right.
I would say throughout all my life, I was fascinated by psychology and what makes people tick. Mm-hmm. And when I saw that first psychic, I was fascinated by how could she see all those pictures from a deck of playing cards?
Absolutely. I can resonate with that.
Yes, yeah. And so I just really followed that line of inquiry for years, not believing that I had any ability by myself. And it was only when all these other psychics that I went to see, who I was fascinated by, told me that I would be very powerful as a psychic and I would be well known and famous and traveling all over the world, that I started to think, well, am I? Maybe? What does that feel like? Is it a good thing?
Yes.
And I resisted it for a long time, as you know, Sahar.
That's interesting, yes.
Finally, I succumbed to it, and now I'm very happy doing what I do.
You also have a very marvelous quote in your book. You say, coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous.
Yes.
And I really feel there are no coincidences. There's nothing by chance. And I feel sometimes my experience is that if you look back, coincidences turn out to be like the little stitches that make up the big tapestry that is our life.
That's a lovely way of putting it.
And I feel with your book, as I read from chapter to chapter, you really kind of weave in that story of how you transformed your life, or discovering that you were psychic really transformed your life.
Yes, and...
Because you traveled all over the world, you've been to Libya. I love the IBM philosophy in your book as well.
Well, I try and infuse into my clients the faith that we don't understand what happened to us at the time, and it certainly took me
years to kind of understand. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Because sometimes the clients are so impatient. It's like, why can't it happen now?
Exactly.
And I love what you say at the end in your book about the author. It says her mission is to make her work as a psychic coach redundant by training others to listen and to trust their own intuition.
Exactly.
How far are you down that goal?
Well, I think we've got a long way to go, Sahar, with that one.
But you have been teaching, and you hold teleclasses as well.
I do, and through my writing, I'm really empowering people really just to listen. That's what, to me, being psychic or intuitive is. It's just listening to our inner voice, listening to our bodies, listening to the universe. The universe is constantly giving us feedback.
Answers, yes, absolutely.
Giving us signs, and we are just not paying attention. And so I encourage everyone just to listen to what is that little voice inside of them saying to them. And it might show up as a feeling in the body, a feeling of excitement or fear. It might be a message on the TV, or a book might fall out in front of them. Might be my book. And it's just constantly empowering people to go to that place where they have everything they need inside of them.
It's also interesting, I saw on your website that you also work with corporations or businesses.
I do.
Are they interested in psychic development?
The word intuition is becoming a leading edge.
Yes.
Kind of subject for corporations to going towards. The word psychic is still a little bit scary for them.
Absolutely,
so I just switch the language.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing. And yes, it's very exciting.
And of course, there's more about you on your website, which is www.natashapsychic.com.
That's right.
And of course, your marvelous articles on Psychic and Spirit magazine, where your book is also mentioned and reviewed there. Now, speaking about the future, what does the future hold for you, Natasha?
For me?
Yes.
I'm going to be very busy. I think there are many light workers on the planet right now working. We're coming more together. We're forming a network, as I am with you, Sahar. And for me, it's very exciting. I feel I know I'm going to be finishing my 2 new books.
You have 2 more books in the pipeline.
I do.
Wonderful.
The next title is called I See Dead People and Other Psychic Tales. And that's educating people more about cellular memory and past life experiences. And a collection of my columns called Dynamic Spirituality, bringing spirituality into everyday life, into a very practical sense. I'm going to be traveling and doing talks, and I am going to be starting an online bookstore to make available to everybody
your writings
around the
and your
world.
books.
Yes.
Of course, you're based in Vancouver, but anyone can have a reading by you, by telephone or in person or over the internet. Is that right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Finally, Natasha, if you're going on a holiday on a desert island and you're only allowed to take 3 things, what are you most likely to take with you?
Oh, that's very interesting. Oh, my gosh. Let me think now. Well, could I take a gorgeous man?
Yeah.
That would be number 1.
Okay.
I would probably take books, and there are so many. It's hard for me to...
Is there a favorite that influenced you in some way?
I'd probably take a book on Buddhism.
Interesting.
And I'd probably take the Bible, and I'd probably take the Quran.
That's wonderful.
Just because I would like to have time to study how all religions interface, and I believe they all come from the same root.
Absolutely.
But they're just different expressions of the same philosophy.
Absolutely. I think there can only be one creative universal force in the end.
Exactly. One truth. And we all get to it from different sides of the
From
mountain.
different angles, absolutely.
Yeah.
Natasha, wonderful to speak to you, and thank you very much for joining us on psychicpodcasts.com.
And thank you for inviting me, Sahar.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.